talking a lot about this. Man, when the trial comes, the spotlight is on you. The spotlight is on you. And man, it's the best time. It's the best time to show the sufficiency of Jesus Christ. It's the best time to point unbelievers to Him. So guess what? When the trial comes, we need to immediately think, hey, this is a God encounter. That's what this is. It's a God encounter. And I'm going to challenge you to start thinking like that. You're going to have to train your mind to do that. I know it doesn't come natural, but this is a God encounter. The trial is here, and guess what? If the trial's here, guess what? Guess who else is here? If the trial's here, guess who else is here? God. God's here. Friends, when the trial comes, you need to dust yourself off and get ready, because it's a God encounter. That's what it's all about. It's about the fact that He has come to you in this way. Blessed is the man who perseveres in the trial. Did you hear that? Blessed. What does that word mean? Blessed. What does it mean? Happy. Let me ask you, Christian friend, are you reluctant to be happy? What does it say? Blessed is the man who perseveres in a trial. Are you reluctant to be blessed of God? Are you hesitant to enter into deeper intimacy with Jesus Christ? That's the implication. Blessed are you. Are you hesitant and reluctant to be blessed of God? Oh, how many times I've heard a preacher say this one time. I kind of liked it. So many times we're praying away the very thing God means to change us with. And I know there's mystery there. I know there's mystery there. The trial is here, but so is God. I love how David Paulson, he was a cancer survivor, theologian. He says this, we are 100% certain to suffer. And we are 100% certain to meet Christ in that suffering. 100% certain to suffer. And 100% certain to meet Jesus Christ right in the middle of it. So I exhort you, brothers and sisters, to think biblically about your trials. Man, God hasn't forgotten you or forsaken you. He's on His way to you. Don't let the unbelievers see you whining and worrying and moaning and groaning. I'm not saying we're not human, but I'm saying God's calling us to this high place. This really, really high and beautiful place. Look at verse 5 through 8 here. It says, if you lack wisdom, what? What does He say? What does God say? If you lack wisdom, what? Ask. How many of you have been asking? Okay. God says ask. Hey, if you don't have wisdom to go through the trial, guess whose fault that is? It's not God's. It's yours. God says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask you. Now, I want to make this clear. God doesn't give an accounting. He doesn't explain Himself to anyone. He never gives an account of Himself to anyone. But He will impart wisdom regarding the trial. You may recall, God never answered any of Job's questions. God just gave Job a jaw-dropping revelation of Himself. And that's what God's going to do in your trial as well. So what does the Bible say over and over again about wisdom? What is the beginning of wisdom? The fear of the Lord. Proverbs 9:10 says it beautifully. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Oh, we're back right where we started. The attributes of God. The knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. This is why my wife worships in cancer. She doesn't wring her hands. Because she has a knowledge of the Holy One. This is the kind of wisdom James is talking about. God hasn't given us an accounting of why and all that He's doing. We don't have to have that accounting. We don't have to have that accounting. We don't need that accounting. Karen has a knowledge of the Holy One. We don't need an accounting. God answers every question. God is the answer to every question. When you can't find the answer to the question, God is the answer to the question. When the question's too big and mysterious and lofty to get to the heart of it and find the answer, God is the answer. Let me ask you real quick, have you ever surveyed the Bible regarding the benefits of fearing the Lord? You know, it talks, the beginning of wisdom is in fearing the Lord. I did a quick listen to this. I'm going to give it to you real quick. The Bible says that those who fear the Lord, Psalm 25, they're friends of God. Psalm 33, they're cared for by God. Psalm 34, they are protected and delivered by God, and they have no want. Psalm 103, they are recipients of God's love and compassion. Psalm 147, the Lord takes pleasure in them. Proverbs 14, they drink of the life of God. Proverbs 19, those who fear the Lord are satisfied. This is the kind of wisdom that James is talking about in verse 5. The fear of the Lord, the knowledge of the Holy One. This is the kind of wisdom that James is talking about. God-given wisdom. You're not going to get this from a psychologist or a psychiatrist. You can't get this on a psychic hotline. It's not going to be in your horoscope. You can't get it from a philosophy professor at Harvard. It's God-given. And only God's children get this kind of wisdom. The kind of wisdom that, hey, however hard it is, God's enough. God is enough. God means for you to come to Him and ask Him for wisdom. This is a command. It is not a suggestion. Okay? Present active imperative. God says, ask me. Ask me. God is a giver. We've talked about this many, many times. He gives generously without reproach. I love that. God gives generously, open-handedly, liberally, big-heartedly, without reproach. What does that mean? You know how it is with your kids sometimes. They come to you and you say, well, I'm going to give you your allowance, but you don't deserve it. You're a little punk. Well, maybe you don't say that last part. But, you know how it is. There's a reproach in it. Yeah, I'm going to do this, but there's a reproach. It's not like that with God. It's not like that with God and His children. There's no reproach. God says, if you lack wisdom, you ask me, and I'm going to give it to you. Big-heartedly. I love that. Open-handedly. God is an omnipotent giver. We've talked about it many, many times. Beloved, if you don't have the wisdom to navigate the trials of life, ask God. You know what? This is sad to say, but it's true, and you probably can own this for yourself. Sometimes we do everything but ask God. We've called all our friends. We've been reading all the latest self-help books. We've done everything. We've been surfing the net. We've done everything but what? Ask God. God says, ask me. God says, ask me. Karen and I love to go to the sea here, and you look at verses 6 through 8. He talks about the doubting man. He's like the sea driven, tossed by the wind. You know, Karen and I love to go to the sea. You know, you can sit there all day and watch the same water go in and out all day long. It just goes, it comes in and it goes out. And then it comes in and it goes out. It's all day long, it's the same water. It never makes any progress. And that's what God is saying. The man who doubts, the man who doesn't have real faith, the man who is double-minded, he's like that. He never makes any progress. He never makes any progress. I love how John Bunyan described the double-minded man in Pilgrim's Progress. He called him Mr. Facing Both Ways. Some of you might be able to, unfortunately, some of us might be able to relate to that. Mr. Facing Both Ways. God says, don't come to me doubting. Don't come to me doubting. What does He say? Don't let the double-minded man expect that he'll receive anything from the Lord. You come in faith. That's what God says. You come in faith. You come in faith. 9 through 11 here. You kind of almost wonder, well, why is this in here? This looks like it doesn't fit the context. He's talking about the poor brother and the rich brother. So what is God saying to us? When the trial comes, it doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor. God says, be heavenly minded. Think forward. Have the mind of Christ. No doubt poverty can be a great trial. But God says to His child, He says, you think forward. You look at your inheritance that I've promised you. No doubt temporal wealth can be a burden. It can be a snare of pride and self-sufficiency. It can anesthetize us to ultimate reality. God says, hey, rich man, you better think forward. You better be heavenly minded because you're passing away. You're like the grass, and it's here today, and it's gone tomorrow. He says, rich man, you better remember, you're transitory, man. You're a vapor. You're out of here. You're not here to stay. You're here to go. As we've been saying over the last few weeks, God says, don't love your money. Don't trust your money. It is fleeting. So God is talking to the rich man and the poor man. God says, whether you're rich or poor, have the mind of Christ. To the rich man, He says, be a good steward of your wealth.